Okay, in this video I'm going to be documenting the process of making a 18th century quilted baby cap. This is the cap which mine is based off of. It is made of silk with a printed cotton interior, and it comes from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It has a likely French origin, and it is quilted in a simple diamond pattern. My pattern comes from this lovely book, 18th Century Embroidery Techniques by Gail Marsh. I cannot recommend this highly enough. It's very wonderful. So I radial projected this pattern, which is an English cap, but it's made in the same style as the French example from the Met and many other French examples. This book does happen to provide the dimensions of this particular item. However, it does not draw out the patterns of all of the items, and it does not provide the exact scale. So I had to do quite a bit of math to get my pattern from these drawings. And after I did that, you'll see that I ended up changing the edge in order to accurately reflect the corner of the extant example from the Met. This corner shape is seen in a lot of paintings, so I wanted to reflect that. These are the materials that I'm planning to use. This is a changeable silk, which I think is a shantung and not a taffeta, but since it has no slubs, I'm willing to use it even though it's not entirely period appropriate. And then here is a reproduction cotton print. In a different application, I would probably pre-wash the cotton. However, since it's being combined with silk and with wool batting, the finished garment is not going to be laundered, so it does not need to be pre-washed now. And then here I just have some wool. It's very sticky. It sticks to itself very well. And in the past I used a different wool when I made a quilted petticoat, which the fibers were a lot longer and silkier, and those fibers have a tendency to kind of slip out from the fabric, from the two layers that the batting is quilted between, and it ends up looking like there's a lot of cat hair on the petticoat. So I would recommend for quilting definitely using a wool that has more sticking power, so that it hopefully will not do that. I'll update you with this garment and we'll see how that works out. Here you can see I've cut out some rectangles of both fabrics, and I've pressed them so that all the wrinkles are out. You can see that I'm leaving a pretty wide seam allowance, and I'm doing this because sometimes quilting can cause the fabric to be drawn inward, and this can distort the outlines of the pattern pieces, so I'm waiting to cut out the actual shapes until all of the quilting is completed. This is about the thickness of the wool batting that I use, and I'm just pulling it apart to get all the clumps out. So I have all my layers, I have them sandwiched, and I have the pattern pieces outlined, and I've just basted here with a silk thread, contrasting for all three pieces. So the next part will be to begin the quilting. Here is the first fully quilted piece. I finished this last night. Look at that. It looks really cool in the sunlight. Here's the piece that I'm gonna quilt tonight. I just mark the lines with my ruler and chalk. This is this silk thread. I'm using it doubled, and it's working pretty well. So here I have the quilting completed, and I've retraced the outline of the pieces, and I'm going to cut them out. Here is the first of the internal seams. For this I used a waxed linen thread and a space backstitch, and I left a seam allowance of about a 1/2 inch, but I don't really measure anymore. Based on this cap in the book, which is from the same gallery, I am planning to whip stitch down the seam allowance on the inside of the lining. And before I do that whip stitching down the seam allowance, I'm going to cut away the excess wool that's here. So this is the inside of the assembled cap with the seam allowances turned out and whip stitched down. This is just a quick update video to show you that I've completely cut off the seam allowance, and now I'm using a thin silk taffeta ribbon to bind the cut edge. After the addition of the binding, this is where I've decided to finish the cap. I'll give you some close-ups of the binding here and of just the quilting itself. Here's the inside. Oh, I also want to show you how I turned the corner. It was kind of delicate, but came out pretty good on both sides. I'm pretty happy with that. I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and perhaps it will even inspire you to create your own baby caps. My next video will be explaining the process to make this embroidered version. So definitely subscribe so you can stay up to date with that. In the meantime, happy sewing, everyone!